Today we are at the Eden Project. Those of you who can see behind me, you will no doubt recognise these big biomes. That's what they're known as. And this is in the middle of Cornwall, in central Cornwall. It's just outside St Austell, about 8 or 9 miles from where we live. And we've been here a number of times before. We first came here before it was actually completed. So because if you were a local, and Roger's mum had a house down here at the time, if you were a local you could come, or anybody could come, and they could have a little train ride around and they could see it being built. We all had to wear hard hats. I remember we went on this little toy train being pulled by a tractor and went all round the site as it was being built. This was completed in time for the millennium, and I remember there was a big millennium party here. So it's about 23, 24 years old now. And it's, very interesting. It costs, today it would have cost us £40 to get in. And our question today is it worth the money? I'm Jill, behind the camera is Roger, and we are Which Way Now? The Eden Project was actually built on an old china clay pit. And china clay was big business around here and is still pretty big business, to be honest. And this was a disused pit, and when it was bought by a man called Tim Schmidt, they decided to develop it into this project. And the Eden Project is all about green living, it's about biodiversity, and a lot of the gardens around here celebrate different areas of the world and plants that they have. And it is like its own little microclimate down here as well. And the Eden Project is a charity, and it works a lot with schools and people locally to develop their awareness of green issues. And this building behind me is, in the winter, it's an ice rink, and in the summer, it's where they host their Eden Sessions, which are outdoor concerts that they have here in the summer. And it's had everybody from Kylie Minogue, Tom Jones, all kinds of people playing here in the summer, in the sunshine, in theory. This is what I was saying about the Eden Sessions bit. This kind of domey tent is not here in the summer, and this is where everybody stands and sits with their drinks and they watch people on the stage down here. At the moment it's Christmas holidays, and the bit behind me is now an ice rink, which is absolutely heaving with children because it's school Christmas holidays and there's loads of people in there. And if it's not school holidays, then it's the last couple of days of school. So a lot of kids are here having a nice time on the ice rink. This is the ice rink I was talking about. As you can see, it's fairly crowded today. But it's got a lovely atmosphere. So I'm standing in front of the tropical biome, and one question is, what is a biome? And basically they've used these giant bits of plastic to create an artificial atmosphere. So this is the tropical biome, and inside later you'll see lots of tropical plants, and there's a Mediterranean biome on the other side of this entrance. And when it was built, we found out that actually each of these, which are only quite thin plastic because of the way they're stretched, each of those segments could hold an entire rugby team, which is quite impressive. This bit was also where James Bond was filmed. I can't remember which James Bond film, no doubt Roger will remind me. But there were scenes where James Bond came through the ceiling from one of these bits as well, and that was filmed when this was quite a new place to come. So I said this was the tropical biome, and as you can see from the sign here, this gets more than 30 degrees. And I do remember coming here with a school group in the summer, and it was so hot we had to leave at some points because the children were all expiring from the heat. But it is very warm in here, which on a day like today in December is very pleasant. I remember coming here when one of the first times that it opened, and the plants were obviously a lot smaller than they are now. And it's funny, every time you come you can see how much more established all the planting is, especially some of those bamboos, which are now absolutely enormous. I love coming in here, especially at this time of day where it's very early. It's just gone 10 o'clock. This was opened at 9:30. It's now just gone 10 o'clock, and it's so quiet. There's hardly anybody else around, which is lovely. And these plants are just amazing. We've got banana palms, all kinds of things in here, and they are incredible, huge, great big things, which actually now are getting too big and have to be chopped off at the top so they stay inside these biomes. There's lots of signs in here that tell you all about the different plants. There's one about sweet potato here. Tells you what the plants are for in different parts of the world. So the sweet potato is used across Polynesia and used to ferment beer as well, which is quite interesting. And there's ones of those all the way around the Eden Project here. In the biome, there's lots of these things which tell you which part of the world or which part of the tropics you're in at the moment. And this is Southeast Asia, and it tells you what kind of plants to look out for as well. So in here, we need to look out for carnivorous pitcher plants, gingers and giant bamboos. And also within this, there's different houses and things like that tells you how the people in that area lived. This is giant bamboo, and as you can see from the size of it, it is absolutely colossal. And it grows at an alarming rate as well. And when we were in Hong Kong and Singapore, they used it quite a lot for scaffolding. You can see it's very straight, which is probably very good for that kind of thing. This hut tells you all about the water cycle, and it's quite clever because when you walk up the path, the water automatically turns on and you can see what happens when it rains. And this is like a hut from Africa. We're in the African area of the tropics now. So in this tropical biome, they have a number of walkways that are actually put at the height, or the height of some of the trees, which is really nice because you can see where the trees have been pruned, and you can see all the different heights, different types of trees. This is quite a wobbly bridge, but it's okay. And we're very much hoping that later on we can go right up to the top of the biome, but we don't know if that's open or not yet, so we'll have to wait and see. One of the biggest threats to our planet is actually deforestation. There's an example of it here, and it says on this sign that every 11 seconds an area the size of this biome, which is not small, is destroyed by deforestation. And it's talking about the different products that actually are used or are grown. So there's beef and there's leather, there's palm oil, soya beans, paper, rubber, cocoa and coffee, all of which are grown in these kind of rainforest areas, and all of which are contributing to the cutting down of trees. So sadly it means we need to be very careful when we buy these products to make sure that we're not contributing to the deforestation of the world. As we go round, there's a number of facts and figures that are written all over the place, and there's one on the side of this lorry here. In the last 300 years, sugar consumption has risen from 1.8 kilos per person a year to 45 kilos a year. And that's just amazing. That's quite scary, actually. I know that's because sugar is so much more readily available, but even so, very scary. And also the fact that more sugarcane is harvested worldwide than wheat every year. Didn't know that either. This is part of the educational bit about the water cycle, and it says about the fact that the steam that comes up here will then evaporate or will then condense onto the leaves and will fall as rain. No, I don't know what I'm talking about, but it basically says about the fact the steam rises, and also there's lots of clouds that are generated in the rainforest, and these then form onto the leaves, which then has water in it, and the leaves then drip down onto the rainforest floor. I think that's what I meant. So here I am on the top of the lookout platform, and this is about 30 metres above the floor of the biome, and it's absolutely gorgeous up here. It's a lovely view. Roger's down the bottom there videoing, and it's lovely. I'm going to take a little video so you can see all the way around up here as well. It is gorgeous. So we've just been in the tropical biome, and now we are going into the Mediterranean biome. Much cooler, not nearly as hot as the other one, and hopefully there'll be some nice plants and things to see in here as well. The Mediterranean biome, they've recreated this traditional olive grove here, and olive groves are a big feature of the Mediterranean, and they were saying that current olive groves, when they're planted, are much more intense than this, and basically they take out all the wildlife, whereas these kind of olive groves have lots of plants underneath them and the wildlife can thrive. Again, it's talking about the greenness of everything and the biodiversity of the area as well. One of the interesting things about this biome, I've just been reading, it says it was made with absolutely no soil, which is quite incredible if you look around, but it was actually made with China clay waste that was put together with green waste, as in garden waste, and all mulched together, and then worms and various other bits and pieces were added, and this is now perfect soil, or not soil, for this kind of environment. So this Mediterranean biome, as I said before, is a lot cooler. It's also a lot smaller than the other biome. And I would have said there's less diversification of the plants, but that's probably because I don't know that much about plants. That's probably why I'm thinking that. There's different areas. So there's an area for Southwest Australia, there's an area for California, South Africa, as well as the Mediterranean itself, even though this is known as the Mediterranean biome. And it's known as that because those places kind of share the same atmosphere and the same climatic conditions as the Mediterranean, I think. And it's still, I mean, it's not as big as the other, but it's still absolutely enormous. This is part of the small or micro world, I can't remember what it's called, Invisible Worlds, that's what it's called, and it's in the core building. And this is part of a thing about cyanobacteria, apparently. And this machine weighs about 20 tons and produces smoke rings, which are meant to be things that envelope you. This is meant to be the bacteria that envelope us all the time. At various points in time, it will produce smoke rings from different places around this machine. It's also meant to do with the China clay from Cornwall as well. That's what it's covered in, apparently. So this is seed, and this was put here in 2006. It started off as a 178-ton block of stone, and it's now down to 70 tons block of stone. And it's basically, it looks a bit like an acorn or something. It's got all these little nodules all over it, which these ones have all been rubbed by people. You can see where they're quite black here. They've all been rubbed by people's hands. And it was brought in via the ceiling hole there, where the glass is. That's how it was lowered in on a crane. One of the things you can do here at Eden is the hang loose zip wire. And I don't know if you can see, but there's two wires coming across the top of the domes there, the biomes, I should say, not the domes. And Roger's done it, and he quite enjoyed it, I think. Yeah, and it's I think they encouraged him to scream when he did it, to try and grab attention and encourage everybody else to look up and see what was going on. But yeah, that's something else you can do when you're here at Eden. And there's the adventure playground I can see just behind Roger as well, so that'll be another good thing to do. One thing we haven't mentioned is there's quite a lot of outdoor gardens that you can do here at Eden as well. It's not particularly something that we've explored because it's not particularly something that we're that interested in. But there is quite a lot of outdoor gardens that you can explore if you want to and have a walk around as well. The other thing that happens here at Eden is every year there's the Eden Marathon and the Eden Half Marathon. And I ran the Eden Half Marathon a couple of years ago. It was a really hot day and I think I got sunburnt even though it was October. And you sort of see a few bits of Eden that aren't open to the public as well, which is quite nice. So it runs all around the lanes locally and then comes back in through the back end of Eden. And you see a few bits that aren't normally open to the public. So the question is Eden worth the money? Well, we'll come back to that in a minute. But just a couple of words of advice. Basically, if you're going to come to Eden at any time of year, get here when it opens, because otherwise it's going to get really busy. And also, that also means that you don't have to park quite so far away. There are 11 different car parks, and there is a park and ride that runs as well, or a shuttle bus, I should say, not a park and ride. But if you're in the top car park, you may have to wait quite a long time to get a bus, and then when you come down, you have to wait again to come back again. So I would advise get here early, and then you can walk back to your car rather than having to get a bus back. Is Eden worth the money? Well, we were just talking about that. If you're into plants, or you want your children to be educated in green issues, then I think, yes, Eden is definitely worth the money, because we've been here for about 2.5 hours. We haven't seen everything at all, and I would say it's definitely worth the money. It was £100 today for a family ticket, and yeah, I guess you probably could stay here for longer than we have if you're interested, and of course there's places to eat, there's shops, etc., that you can go to as well. I don't know, what do you think, Rog?
Yeah, no, it's one of those things. Before we came, we thought, actually, £100 a lot of money for what it is. But there is a lot here. And as you say, it's very much a case of, it is diverse and it is educational. It's very educational.
Yeah.
Whether kids would be interested would be another matter.
Yeah.
There's not huge amounts for kids to actually do here.
No, it's much more about looking rather than actually getting involved with your hands on, isn't it, really? Which is the difference between this and other places, I guess. So as this is our last video of the year, we just wanted to say Happy New Year to everybody and wishing you a wonderful 2024.
And thanks for subscribing and watching our videos. Thank you.